Qualities needed to reconnect with family, Episode 8, Kindness. Part of the series Conflict Resolution Insights from Brett Lovett's The Compassion Project and FamilyReconcile.com. This is our topic for today.
Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and Podcast by InstantMediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact-dependent.
Hello and welcome. I am Natalia Łowska-Czajka, advocate, mediator, and arbitrator from Warsaw, Poland.
Hello again, Mac Louis, attorney, mediator, and arbitrator working throughout Florida and Texas.
Yes, hello again. I am Brett Lovett, and I am the founder of FamilyReconcile.com.
Thank you for participating in the 8th episode of our series aiming at showing our listeners or viewers how we can reconnect with family within 10 steps, practicing 10 different virtues. The topic of today is kindness, which seems so obvious to many of us, but I do believe that there might be a lot of confusion when we talk about it. Brett, please, can you explain what do you mean when you mean kindness as a factor to reconnect with a family?
Yeah, and that's the context we're talking in, right? You two, we're talking in the context primarily of family relationships, but we've applied each one of these qualities. That's why this series is wonderful. It's incredible, because we've been able to talk about qualities as individuals, but how they relate to the whole. But understanding the whole also helps us understand better each quality. You know, when we talk about deference and gratitude and humility and forgiveness and apology, and here we are at kindness, and we're going to keep going. But they all tie together, and that's one of the wonderful things about this program is you can't just get one. You have to have them all. And so if the more we work on this, the better we're going to be at all of it together, and the better we're going to change the world, which is what we're trying to do through our relationships. That's where it starts.
Thank you, Brett. Can you give us a definition of kindness?
Yeah, kindness is defined in the dictionary as the quality of being friendly, generous, and or considerate.
And can you give a little bit more in depth into each of those attributes: friendly, generous, and considerate?
Yeah, kindness, whether it's an act of friendliness or generosity, or consideration or thinking about someone else, regardless of what it is, it means different things to different people. Kindness is really broad in its application. It can be expressed through empathy. It can be expressed through thoughtfulness. It can be expressed through acceptance. It can be expressed through kind gestures, through a smile. Kindness means what you want it to mean, and it may mean different things to each individual. So it's up to us. You know what kindness is? Kindness is up to us and how we express it. Here are three critical questions, because we use the word kindness a lot, and we think we know, as with all these qualities we've talked about in the industry, how we open up each show and we say, here's apology and here's forgiveness, and we're like, oh, I know what that is, but do we really know what it is? That's what this show is about, in this series is about. So when it comes to kindness, here's three questions for fundamentally laying the groundwork to possibly understanding it at a deeper level. And that is, these are rhetorical. When is the last time that you saw an act of kindness? And how did that make you feel? Number one. Number two, when is the last time that you experienced kindness? And how did that make you feel? And number three, when is the last time you engaged, you displayed, or you gave kindness? And how did that make you feel? Answering those three questions internally will lay the foundation for better understanding this quality.
So Ever since we are children, we are taught to be kind to people, to our neighbors, to adults, to other relatives. And I do believe that in many people, there is a common understanding that kindness is about words. Things like thank you, may I, or just using polite language. Is it really what is kindness about?
Yeah, I think you're talking about nice things there. There's an article written by Kelly Shee. She's a researcher out of Santa Clara University. She wrote an article on kindness. Is kindness just being nice? Again, words that we use interchangeably all the time, but there are nuances, between the two. Is kindness being nice? Sure. That's an aspect of being nice, but that in no way embodies the full meaning of what kindness is. You can hold the door for somebody, right? Is that being nice if you do that? Yeah. You can hold the door for somebody. Is that being kind? Yes. So there are similarities there. But when we break them down at a deeper level, there are some nuances between the two. If somebody's misbehaving, right? You think about maybe a child in a classroom, could be an adult. I don't want to just apply it to children. Could be an adult misbehaving. What are they generally told? If somebody needs to interject something, they're generally told, now, stop that, or, please be nice. They're generally not told to stop and now please be kind. They're told to, be nice. So nicety or niceness implies, it's kind of more of personality. It implies personality. It's like a status quo, an average, a fitting in. This is acceptable. You talked about social, structure of behaviors. That's how niceness is applied. You can be nice and still expect something in return. And niceness, probably more often than not, could imply some sort of selfishness behind it, as opposed to kindness. Kindness implies, kindness more often than not probably is not applied with a selfishness attached to it or an agenda. So there's a difference there. One is more, can be used and probably kind of leans more towards a selfishness, which is the niceness. And kindness is more of, it doesn't matter whether the person needs it or doesn't need it. The kindness is given, and it's given in a way that it generally doesn't need to be repaid or given back in some way. So there's some nuance there, between nice and kind. Nice applies, but it doesn't in any way embody what kindness really is.
So continuing on with this idea of kindness versus niceness, I often hear in our culture that nice guys finish last, or nice guys don't win, or girls don't like the nice guy, where it's almost as if people might think that if you're trying to show this attribute of kindness, it might mean that you are going to let people walk all over you, or it might mean that you will be taken advantage of, that people don't want to show kindness because it might show weakness. They might be taken advantage of. Can you go a little bit into that? Why is this virtue so important for connecting back with families when it may make somebody feel like it's pretty dangerous?
Good question. Isn't it interesting when you think about this? Every single quality we've discussed thus far in this series, because we're on 8 now, that same question is applicable and applied and has been asked. If we display this quality, aren't we vulnerable to be taken advantage of? Aren't we vulnerable to being walked over? We've discussed that. And isn't it interesting that each of the qualities, that question has to be asked, where does that come from? Well, that comes from, as you mentioned, a society that says, hey, if you do this, you're going to be taken advantage of. If you're like this, you're going to finish last, right? And so we believe these narratives. But my question is, okay, show me the evidence that you're going to finish last for displaying this quality. Show me the evidence that you're not going to be a better person. You're going to be worse off for displaying this quality, regardless of what the quality is. So we say things, but we need to step back and say, well, what's the evidence for that? And that's why this is what this whole series is about, right? We're drilling down on these qualities and debunking like myths, cultural myths, and in stigmas surrounding these incredible qualities. Isn't that interesting? Because if we can get past that and we can see the power and the strength of these qualities, imagine the change you'll affect in your relationship. Imagine the change in the relationship that you'll affect in society. Imagine the change in society that will affect the world. And if you don't think that that's possible, then you're probably not even here paying attention to this podcast, because that's what this podcast is about. It's about making that kind of change in the world, not just here personally. And I know that's a little bit of a diatribe, and I ran off in a kind of a direction there, but that's what we're doing here. That's why we're drilling down, is to debunk myths, cultural myths, like displaying these qualities is negative. Displaying these qualities is weakness, because we talked about pretense in last week's episode. And pretense is making something appear to be something it's not. When you say that kindness is weakness, you're making it appear to be something that it's not. And I'm not going to stand for that. And that's why we're here to talk about what it really is.
And this is also why we're defining each of those qualities, so that it is to avoid misrepresentations, to avoid miscommunication in what we are trying to convey. So how can a person better learn to be kind?
I was thinking too, we attach these words to them, like what are they? And we've talked about, well, they mean different things to different people. Kindness is so much more than a quality. It is a quality, but it's so much more than that. And this is what I would say. I'd say kindness is a movement. It's a movement. When you are kind to someone else, generally, what do they do? Generally, what are you inspiring? You're generally inspiring that person to, in turn, find a way to be kind to somebody else. Okay, that's why I asked those three questions in those three rhetorical questions, in the beginning, to get us thinking about when's the last time I saw it, when's the last time I experienced it, when's the last time I did it. If we can get the brain thinking in that way, then now we're going down this path of, well, really, what is it? Oh, it's not just a quality. It's not just this thing that I can display in this moment. It is, but it's really bigger than that. It's about what you're doing to the relationship, what you're doing to the society you live in, and really how that society is now impacting the world, because you have a better understanding and grasp of what kindness means to others. So it absolutely affects, whether you show it or not, absolutely affects your relationship. So I go back to this same thing again. It's, what do you want? What do you want for your relationship? What do you want for the society you live in? What do you want for the world? What's that expression? Be the person that you want others to be, be the change that you want to see in the world, right? That expression, be the change you want to see in the world. This is how you do it. You do it through these qualities, not just kindness, but all the qualities that we've discussed in the series and that we will continue to discuss.
Thank you. Brett, can you go back to questions that we can ask ourselves to be better at being kind, especially in our own relationships?
Yes. So if we're going to answer those questions, then I think a natural follow-up question is, well, what can kindness do? What can kindness do in my relationships, not only in the family, but in society and across the world? Well, being kind can be a bridge between peace and harmony. And you see that, don't you see an application for that in a formal setting such as mediation? Using kindness to be a bridge between peace and harmony, where mediations are usually out of harmony. They're not on the same page, and they're not generally all that peaceful. So we can use this quality in a formal setting like that to bridge between peace and harmony. Do you see how that could be applied in a relationship between a husband and wife, or between spouses or partners, or between parents and children, or between your neighbor in you? So it's a bridge. Kindness is a bridge between peace and harmony. What else can kindness do? Kindness can create laughter. Kindness can create joy. It's a tool that can be used to strengthen bonds. It's a bucket that can be used to douse bitterness and blame. It's a key that can unlock the prisons that we often live in, self-imposed prisons that we often live in, of selfishness and hostility. And it's so much more other than that. But that is kindness in application. Those are the things that we can achieve through displaying the quality. So there's nothing. Let me just finish by saying, you can only learn so much about kindness through research. You can only learn so much through kindness about reading about it and studying about it. Kindness is learned through practice. And while we're on that note, practice, practice, practice. That is the best teacher of kindness, which is why I asked those rhetorical questions in the beginning.
Thank you. And to sum up and to start wrapping up, I would say, whenever I think of this topic of kindness, that in many ways people act certain ways to you by reacting to something you may have done or said, or something they just perceived in their own heads, right? A lot of life is about reacting. And I wonder how much showing kindness will then cause people or pull out of them that desire to be equally kind, to show kindness. Like, I imagine a mediation, for example. You brought up mediation a second ago. And you have a couple people who are having some problems. They're at the table and they're hostile to each other, and they are not on the same page. They don't like each other very much. But one of them decides to, bend and show kindness. Just acts a little bit nice, okay, in a way that surprises the other person and shocks the other person. Won't that, not guaranteed, but won't that possibly cause that reaction to come out, right? Just like hatred creates more hatred, I'm guessing that kindness produces more kindness, right? Anyway, that's how I look at it. What are your thoughts on that?
I go back to things that we've already discussed and how these all relate to one another. Remember, we talked about the theory game there about playing an X card or an O card. Kindness is an O card. So if you're in a mediation setting and there's, you're looking for common ground, or you're the mediator, or perhaps you're even the counselor that's, but you're there with the parties. And you're trying to find what? You're trying to find a resolution, right? You're trying to find agreement. You're trying to find common ground. Tell me how kindness, or an act of kindness, or acts of kindness is not going to lay the groundwork for that. So that's playing an O card. They may play an X card, you play the O card, right? You may get another. I told you this in that last when I was telling you that specific scenario. They got an X card back. I went, whoa, and then an O card came back. So, here you have people somebody has to take the initiative. Somebody has to take the initiative. Goes back to, again, another thing that we said. What do you want? What do you want out of that mediation? What do you want out of your relationships? What do you want out of this? Because that's going to dictate your behavior. Nice guys may, they'll tell you, don't do that. You're going to finish. If you're going to be nice in that mediation, you're going to finish last. Okay, prove that to me. That's your concept and that's your idea. And you don't want to be, you want to be tough and strong, and, because that's what society tells you to be. But prove it to me. Prove it how you're not going to come out on top by displaying kindness, by playing an O card. Okay, there's a difference between being walked over, being taken advantage of, and actually taking the initiative and setting the example. Big difference between those two. So don't just categorize it as you're going to get hammered when you're actually trying to take a high road, When you do that, it goes back to what you were saying, Mac. It goes back to kindness will beget kindness. Maybe not in the first move, but maybe the second move. And if that begets kindness, then think of what you can now build on and come together on, and think of the agreements that you can reach in relationships or in a mediation setting. It goes on and on. It's what do you want?
Having said that, we would want to encourage everybody to practice kindness in their lives, actually every single moment, to everybody you meet, to everybody you are on the phone with, and everybody even you write an email to. Kindness builds bridges. And this is about connecting, about building, about looking towards the future to create this better understanding, better life. Thank you very much. And we hope to see you in our next episode together with Brett Lovett. And thank you for today. Signing off, Natalia Łuskaczajka.
Thank you.
Thank you, you too.